The annual defense authorization bill passed the House last night, despite some Democratic opposition to language banning health care for transgender children of military members. One of those opposed to the ban's inclusion in this bill was the ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Adam Smith of Washington. We spoke with him a bit earlier, started by asking him if that language would become law.
It looks like it will. The bill passed out of the House almost 2-1. I think it was 281 to 141. I believe the Senate will move forward and the president will sign it. And look, there is a lot of good in this bill, particularly pay increases for enlisted service members and other benefits aimed at helping service members and their families make it financially. So, plus, there's a lot in the bill to enhance our partnerships and alliances in the world, to get after some of the production challenges that we have. But that one provision targeting health care for trans youth, it shouldn't have been in the bill. You know, frankly, the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee didn't think it had to be in the bill, but Speaker Johnson thought it did for purely partisan wedge issue reasons. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think the bill will make it through the process.
Well, so what you're describing, sir, the idea that there could be a lot of good in a piece of legislation, but still include culture-oriented issues or language that many find issue with. Is this what the 119th Congress is going to look like with Republicans in control of both chambers?
It's worth worrying about, yes. Look, you know, in Congress, by and large, we're always trying to get a little bit of a partisan political advantage. That's part of it, but we balance that with getting things done. And one of the things I love about having been on the Armed Services Committee for 28 years is this committee was one of those committees that focused on the getting things done part. And we have in the past had efforts to try to put more partisan issues into the bill, frankly, from both Democrats and Republicans. And when one side or the other says, yeah, we can't do this, we reject it and we get back to work. So yeah, the fact that this went into the NDAA is concerning about what's going to happen in legislation going forward. And there are a lot of things coming up next year. Appropriations bill, debt ceiling, yeah.
This wasn't just about trans, though, right? The chair of the committee, the Republican leader of your committee, Mike Rogers, didn't want that language in there either. The problem was bringing cultural issues of any sort into the NDAA. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, you know, the members of the committee, Hask and Sask, and look, frankly, I don't know how Mike Rogers feels about the specific language. He just knew that it didn't belong in the defense bill.
Well, so as we consider not just this piece of legislation, but defense issues moving forward, as you'll be ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, do you believe that you will be able to work in a proactive way with Pete Hegseth if he is indeed confirmed to be the next Secretary of Defense?
I don't know. I do know that I will continue to be able to work in a proactive way with Mike Rogers, who's going to be the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, and Roger Wicker, who's going to be the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Very bipartisan in Congress. As for how Mr. Hegseth is going to run the Department of Defense, there is cause for concern about his willingness to be policy-focused and work in a bipartisan manner, but we really don't know yet.
You do have unique perspective on some of the other potential members of Donald Trump's national security team, assuming people get the roles that they have been tapped for. Former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, Congressman Mike Waltz. When you put some of these other names together, Congressman, what kind of confidence do you have in this team, and specifically when it comes to finishing the job in Ukraine?
Yeah, I'm very concerned. Certainly Hegseth is the biggest concern. I mean, you know, his management of the few small nonprofit agencies that he's been in charge of or worked with over the course of the last decade is alarming. We've seen the allegations substantiated by many people who work there, that he was drunk, that he didn't spend the money well, that he was unconcerned about the management of those organizations, and certainly we saw the result. They nosedived both organizations when he was working at them. So there's considerable cause for concern there. Mike Waltz is a very serious, intelligent person. Mike can be a little aggressive, in my view, in terms of how we deal with people in the world, from my time serving with him on the committee, but he's a smart, reasonable guy. who we can work with. And, well, to your question, then I'll get to Tulsi Gabbard if we have time. Look, President Trump opposed sending more money to help Ukraine defend itself. You know, we're not going to get to peace with Putin unless we show strength, which is ironic because that's the big Donald Trump message. I will be strong and therefore we will get to peace. And yet on Ukraine, he's showing weakness by saying that he didn't want us to send more money to help Ukraine defend itself. Ukraine needs those resources to defend itself, and they need long-term security commitments to force Putin to the bargaining table. And then, yeah, let's go get a negotiated peace. This war has been an unbelievably costly conflict, certainly for Ukraine. Let's get to peace, but you don't get to peace if you walk away from helping Ukraine defend itself.
I get the sense, Congressman, that you do have some thoughts regarding Tulsi Gabbard, who I would remind everyone used to be a Democratic member of the House of Representatives like yourself. Can she be trusted with the nation's intelligence secrets?
Yeah, she served on the Armed Services Committee when I was the chair. And look, I have a decent working relationship with Tulsi. And, well, I mean, we've had many conversations. They've been sensible and fine. She didn't do that much on the committee that I noticed. But certainly, you know, what she's had to say about Assad in Syria, what she's had to say about Putin, the concern about her just, you know, spouting Republican talking points on Ukraine, you know, and also the lack of any background and experience in intelligent matters, which is a complicated world. As the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, I'm let into that world. I was on the Intel Committee for one term. There's complicated issues there, and you have to know how to handle them and know who to work with. And I think there is concern as to whether or not people will trust Tulsi Gabbard with that lack of experience and some of those questionable things that she has said publicly about, you know, some of her allies and friends, as to whether or not she's going to be able to do the job.
So you don't believe, as her worst critics say, that she's a Russian asset, Congressman? You would have known, I suspect, as chairman of that committee.
No. Yeah, well, actually, I don't think I would have known. I don't actually have a list in my head of all Russian assets. They try to keep those things secret as much as possible, particularly from Americans. So, no, I wouldn't necessarily have known, but I don't have any specific evidence of that either. It is a little weird, some of the things that Tulsi said that seemed to perfectly parrot, you know, what Putin was saying about Ukraine and the conflict. No, but I'm not going to make an allegation like that without any specific evidence pointing to it.
Congressman, finally, before we let you go, you, of course, represent a district in which there is Boeing facilities. And I do wonder if you have reaction to the announcement today of the current chair of the FAA, Michael Whitaker, saying that he will be resigning on January 20th. We've seen many agency heads do this, but he still had years left in his term. Is it a mistake for him to be leaving now? And what kind of individual do you hope replaces him?
Yeah, well, I don't know the details behind that. Similar things swirled around FBI Director Wray's decision to step down. I think it was yesterday. And look, a lot of the people in these positions are concerned about how Donald Trump is going to run these agencies. Is he going to put personal loyalty over the interests of the American people and the responsibilities of the job at FBI and FAA? I say ding, 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 ding. Yes, that's a big yes. From everything Donald Trump has said, it seems like he is going to do that. And I think there's a lot of people in these agencies that have a dilemma now. Do they stick around and try to make the best of it? Or do they resign on principle and say, look, I don't believe in the way that he's going to run things? And also, I should say, I don't know why the FAA director left. So until we know more about that. But certainly we've also had problems with the FAA in terms of their ability to adequately monitor Boeing planes, as has been documented. And certainly there's a lot of fault for Boeing and how that played out. But the regulatory agency didn't seem to be up to the job either. So we got to resolve those issues, all against the backdrop of the unique way that Donald Trump apparently intends to run the United States government.